In her village, Nandi was a star. At 19, her future shone brightly. A gifted singer, an usher at her church, and an academic genius. She had been her family's pride. Her mother, Mama Zinsi, a devout woman with a heart of gold, often reminded her, "Nandi, your blessings come from obedience and faith." Mama Zinzi's words echoed in Nandi's ears as she waved goodbye to her family and boarded the bus to Johannesburg, clutching a small suitcase and a heart full of hope. She had earned a scholarship to one of the country's top universities. Her first year was everything she dreamed of. She aced her courses, often topping the class. On Sundays, she sought out a church in the city, even joining their choir. Her calls home were full of stories of her achievements, each one making Mama Zinzi glow with pride. But everything changed in her second year. Nandi's entry into the social world of university life started with harmless curiosity. It was the start of her second year, and her focus had always been on academics and maintaining her faith. Yet there was something magnetic about Notsi and Rahaba, two charismatic girls from her lecture group. They were everything Nandi felt she wasn't: confident, worldly, and effortlessly stylish. Nosy often wore bright colors that matched her bold personality, while Rahaba exuded a quiet sophistication with her minimalistic outfits and sharp wit. The pair had a natural appeal, drawing others into their orbit with ease. "You're too uptight, girl," Nosy said one afternoon, her voice mixed with playful teasing as the three walked out of a lecture. "You've got that village girl vibe. We need to loosen you up." Rahaba nodded in agreement, a sly smile on her lips. "Exactly. Come out with us tonight, just for a little fun. Sky Lounge is the perfect place to unwind." Nandi hesitated, unsure of what to say. Her weekends had always been reserved for church activities and late-night study sessions. But the idea of being included, of stepping out of her comfort zone, tugged at her curiosity. "All right," she finally said, forcing a nervous smile, "but just for a while." That evening, dressed in her modest church dress, Nandi followed Notsi and Rahaba into the nightclub. The dim lights and rhythmic music felt overwhelming at first, but the atmosphere buzzed with excitement. Nosy handed her a glass of wine, insisting, "Just try it." The liquid was bitter, but as it warmed her throat, so did the laughter and carefree energy of the room. By the end of the night, Nandi had laughed more than she had in months, her unease dissolving into a sense of belonging. One night out turned into two, then three, and soon Nandi found herself swept up in a whirlwind of city nightlife. Nosy and Rahaba became her guides, showing her the hidden gems of Johannesburg's social scene. They introduced her to late-night jazz bars, rooftop parties, and the bustling energy of Sky Lounge, a hotspot for the city's young elite. The more time she spent with them, the more her priorities began to shift. Weekends were no longer for church and study. They were reserved for parties and dancing until dawn. Nandi found herself experimenting with makeup, clothes, and hairstyles she had never dared to try before. Her wardrobe, once filled with modest skirts and blouses, now included figure-hugging dresses and high heels. Initially, she balanced her new lifestyle with her studies, telling herself it was possible to have the best of both worlds. But as the months went by, the scales tipped. Sundays, once sacred, were spent nursing hangovers or catching up on missed sleep. Mondays became a dreaded chore, and her once perfect attendance faltered. She told herself it was temporary, that she deserved some fun after all her hard work. "One night won't hurt," she would whisper to herself before stepping out, ignoring the quiet voice in her mind that warned her otherwise. With every party, every skipped lecture, Nandi unknowingly loosened her grip on the disciplined life that had brought her so much success. Though her laughter filled the night, there were moments of quiet unease. She occasionally caught glimpses of her reflection in the darkened windows of the lounge, her face flushed and eyes shadowed. Was this really her? She would shake off the thought, telling herself she was simply growing, adapting to a new world. Little did she know, she was losing herself piece by piece. It was a night like many others at Sky Lounge, but fate had a cruel plan in store for Nandi. The vibrant energy of the club buzzed around her as she danced with Nosy, her laughter mingling with the pulsating beat of the music. She felt alive, free, and invincible, until her gaze met his. Across the room, a man watched her, with an intensity that sent a shiver down her spine. He was older, perhaps in his mid-40s, but carried himself with a sophistication that demanded attention. His tailored suit fit him perfectly, the dark fabric contrasting sharply with the gleaming white of his shirt. Even his shoes, polished to a mirror shine, seemed to reflect the club's neon lights. As the music swelled, the man approached her with unshaken confidence. His movements were deliberate, his stride that of someone accustomed to commanding respect. "Good evening," he said, his voice smooth and deep, carrying an air of authority. "My name is Victor." Nandi was momentarily taken aback, but Victor's charm was disarming. He exuded a magnetism that made her heart flutter, a blend of power and attraction she had never encountered before. Within minutes, he had swept her into a world of luxury. He ordered the most expensive champagne on the menu, the golden liquid bubbling in crystal flutes. "A toast," he said, raising his glass to hers, "to beauty and ambition." Victor's attention was intoxicating. Over dinner at the club's rooftop restaurant, he entertained her with stories of his international business ventures, painting a picture of a life filled with adventure and wealth. "You have a spark," he said, his gaze locking with hers. "A girl like you deserves the finer things in life." Nandi blushed, the flattery wrapping around her like a warm blanket. By the end of the night, she was utterly mesmerized. When Victor invited her to join him, she didn't hesitate. His sleek black car, a symbol of his affluence, purred through the city streets until they arrived at an opulent hotel. The grandeur of the place left Nandi breathless. The marble floors gleamed under the glow of crystal chandeliers, and the air carried the faint, luxurious scent of fresh roses. Victor led her to a lavish suite on the top floor, its decor a blend of modern elegance and timeless luxury. He poured her a glass of wine and handed it to her with a gentle smile. "To new beginnings," he whispered, softly kissing her forehead. For a moment, Nandi felt like Cinderella at the ball, swept into a dream she never thought she'd experience. Victor excused himself, claiming exhaustion from a long day of work. He disappeared into the bedroom, leaving Nandi alone in the vast room. The bed, with its silk sheets and downy pillows, called her. As she sipped her wine, the events of the night replayed in her mind, filling her with a mix of excitement and disbelief. Slowly, her eyelids grew heavy, and she drifted into a deep sleep, unaware that her dreamlike night was about to turn into a living nightmare. In the shadowed corners of the suite, something stirred. The air grew colder, the luxurious surroundings cloaking a sinister presence that had been waiting for this very moment. While Nandi lay peacefully, the true cost of Victor's charm began to reveal itself. As Nandi drifted deeper into sleep, the suite's luxury turned evil. The temperature dropped, and a biting chill seeped into the room. A midget-like figure appeared from the darkness. Its form was grotesque, a creature both humanoid and otherworldly. Its eyes glowed an eerie, wicked red, and its movements were unnervingly smooth, as though it were gliding rather than walking. It approached the bed with deliberate silence, its gaze fixed on Nandi. Her peaceful expression, framed by the soft moonlight filtering through the curtains, betrayed no awareness of the danger looming over her. The spirit's twisted fingers stretched forward, brushing the air just above her as if drawing in her essence. The air grew heavy, thick with an unnatural tension. The creature got under the sheets and began its grim task. What it did fed off Nandi's life force, draining off away her vitality, her charm, and her blessings. She started to feel uncomfortable, as if something was on top of her. She wiggled, trying to wake up, but it was impossible. By the time the creature was done, the radiant girl who had walked into the hotel was but a shadow of herself. The spirit, now recharged with stolen power, vanished as swiftly as it had appeared, leaving behind no trace of its wicked visitation. When morning came, Nandi agitated, feeling a strange weight in her chest. Weakly, she sat up and glanced around the empty suite. Victor was nowhere to be seen. Confused but still weak, she noticed the bedside table. A neat stack of money awaited her, with a note balanced on top in bold, confident handwriting. "Had to leave early for an urgent meeting. Take care, beautiful." The sight of the money erased any lingering doubts or unease. It dazzled her, a crisp reminder of the luxury Victor had promised. She ran her fingers over the bills, their texture a soothing reassurance that everything was fine. Yet as she got out of bed, a strange heaviness lingered in her chest, a faint but persistent feeling of unease. She brushed it off, chalking it up to the wine and the excitement of the previous night. As she prepared to leave the hotel, she convinced herself that Victor's charm and the money were all that mattered. The nagging sense that something was wrong was pushed aside, buried under the attraction of her newfound indulgence. Unknown to her, the damage had already been done. The blessings that once made her life full of promise and hope were gone, stolen by the unseen terror that lurked in the darkness. And while she walked out of the hotel with money in hand, her spirit bore the invisible scars of a night far more evil than she could ever imagine. At first, the money felt like the answer to all of Nandi's dreams. She walked around campus in the latest designer clothes, her wardrobe now packed with trendy outfits and expensive handbags. Her once sharp mind, praised by professors for its brilliance, now felt clouded and sluggish. The lessons that used to come easily to her seemed incomprehensible. Assignments piled up, deadlines were missed, and when exam results were finally posted, Nandi's name was blatantly absent from the list of passes. The shock was devastating. She had failed, and not just one course, but all of them. The news of her academic failure came with heavy consequences. Her scholarship, which had been the lifeline to her education, was revoked. Suddenly, the future that once seemed so bright and promising was slipping out of reach. As her academic life crumbled, so did her social circle. The friends she had once laughed and danced with now seemed to be avoiding her. Nosy stopped answering her calls entirely, and when Nandi confronted Rahaba on campus, she mumbled something about being too busy before hurrying away. The rejection stung more than she cared to admit. These were the same people she had showered with gifts and expensive dinners. Now they wanted nothing to do with her. Desperate for answers, Nandi turned her focus back to Victor. She visited Sky Lounge night after night, hoping to catch a glimpse of him. But the man who had once charmed her with his expensive suits and smooth words had vanished as if he had never existed. She asked the bartenders and waitstaff if they had seen him, but they only shrugged. To them, he was just another wealthy patron who came and went. The money Victor had left her was long gone, spent in pursuit of fleeting happiness. Without a steady income and with no friends to rely on, Nandi's landlord grew impatient. She begged for more time, promising that things would turn around, but her pleas fell on deaf ears. When the eviction notice finally came, she packed her belongings into a small bag, her heart heavy with shame. Returning home to her village wasn't an option. The thought of facing her family's disappointment, of seeing the judgment in her mother's eyes, was too much to bear. Instead, she wandered the city streets, clutching her bag of possessions. At first, she tried to find refuge with acquaintances, but doors were shut in her face. Within weeks, she was homeless. The once vibrant university student, full of dreams and ambition, was now a shadow of herself, begging strangers for spare change. The city streets, cold and unforgiving, became her home. At night, she huddled under thin blankets on park benches, her mind replaying the choices that had brought her to this point. The life she had built, the dreams she had chased, were all gone. In their place was a relentless pain of regret, a distressing hunger for redemption, and the haunting memory of a man who had promised her the world only to leave her with nothing. One chilly evening, the city lights cast long shadows on the cold pavement as Nandi sat slumped on a street corner, clutching a torn blanket. Her once bright eyes were now dull, haunted by weeks of sleepless nights and endless regret. She sat there lost in her thoughts, and the unmistakable sound of a luxury car door closing caught her attention. She looked up, and her heart froze. It was Victor, stepping out of a sleek black car, his tailored suit pristine as ever. His arm was wrapped around a young woman, no older than she had been when she first met him. The girl giggled, her face radiant with excitement, unaware of the danger she was walking into. A surge of emotions overwhelmed Nandi: rage, desperation, humiliation. Her chest tightened as she scrambled to her feet, her trembling legs barely able to carry her forward. She stumbled toward him, her voice cracking as she called out, "Victor, it's me, Nandi. Don't you remember me?" Victor turned slowly, his expression unreadable. For a fleeting moment, she thought she saw a flicker of recognition in his eyes, but it vanished as quickly as it came. "I'm sorry, miss," he said calmly, his voice devoid of the charm it once held. "I don't know you." The young woman by his side raised an eyebrow, her tone dripping with disdain. "Who is this crazy woman?" she asked, glancing at Nandi's messy appearance with a mix of amusement and disgust. Nandi's desperation boiled over. She grabbed the woman's arm, her grip firm but trembling. "Please," she pleaded, her voice raw with emotion. "Don't go with him. He's dangerous. You have no idea what he'll do to you." The woman yanked her arm free, recoiling as if Nandi's touch burned. "Jealous much?" she snapped, her eyes narrowing. "Look at you. You're just some bitter, homeless woman trying to ruin someone else's happiness. Leave us alone." Victor placed a protective hand on the woman's shoulder, guiding her toward the hotel entrance. "Come on, darling," he said smoothly, ignoring Nandi's cries. "Don't waste your time on people like her." Nandi's knees weakened as she watched them walk away, her voice cracking under the weight of her screams. "Victor, you can't keep doing this. You'll destroy her, just like you destroyed me." But Victor never looked back. The young woman clung to his arm, swayed by his effortless charm, completely blind to the darkness that lurked beneath. As the glass doors of the hotel closed behind them, Nandi sank to the ground, her body shaking with sobs. The weight of her failure crushed her chest, but more than anything, she felt a searing pain of helplessness. She had tried to warn the girl, to save her from the same fate, but her words had fallen on deaf ears. The icy wind bit at her skin as she sat there, staring at the glowing lights of the hotel. She knew what awaited the girl inside: luxury, temptation, and the evil plus spirit that would drain her of everything she held dear. Nandi wanted to run inside, to tear Victor's world apart, but she was powerless. No one would believe her, just as they hadn't before. That night, the city buzzed with its usual nightlife hum, but Nandi's focus was locked on the Grand Hotel. The imposing building shimmered under the glow of city lights, its polished exterior masking the horrors unfolding within. From a shadowy corner across the street, Nandi watched as Victor and the young woman check in at reception. Her heart raced, her palms damp with sweat. She had no concrete plan, no idea of what she could do to stop him. All she knew was that she couldn't walk away. Not again. Her memories of the spirit, the darkness that had consumed her, and the life she had lost weighed heavily on her. She had to act, no matter the cost. As the hours dragged on, Nandi's resolve wavered, but never broke. Her eyes remained glued to the window of the suite where Victor had taken the girl. Occasionally, she saw shadows move against the curtains. A silhouette of the young woman laughing, blissfully unaware of the danger she was in. Unable to bear the waiting, Nandi crossed the street and entered the hotel. The warmth of the lobby hit her like a wave, contrasting sharply with the chill of her ragged clothes. The marble floors gleamed under grand chandeliers, and the receptionist looked up, her practiced smile faltering at the sight of Nandi's messy state. "Please," Nandi began, her voice trembling but insistent. "You have to help me. That man who just checked in with the girl, he is dangerous. He's going to hurt her." The receptionist's expression hardened into polite professionalism. "Ma'am, I think you may be mistaken. Mr. Victor is a regular guest here. He's never caused any trouble." "You don't understand," Nandi pleaded, her desperation spilling into her voice. He does something to them. Something evil. You need to check on that girl before it's too late." The receptionist's eyes flicked to a nearby security guard, her smile tightening. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." "No, you don't get it," Nandi cried, her voice rising in panic. "You're letting a monster operate right under your nose. That girl's life is in danger." The guard approached, his broad frame casting a shadow over her. "Let's go, miss. You're disturbing the guests." Nandi struggled as they grabbed her arms, her cries echoing through the grand lobby. "Please, you have to believe me. I'm telling the truth." Her screams went unanswered. The guard escorted her outside, shoving her unceremoniously onto the curb. The hotel doors shut behind her with a finality that felt like a slap in the face. Nandi sat there, her knees drawn to her chest as the cool night air bit at her skin. She stared up at the window of the suite, her heart sinking. The lights had flickered off, leaving only the faintest glow visible from the street. The weight of her failure bore down on her chest, each breath shallow and strained. Across the street, she saw shadows shifting behind the curtains. Her mind filled with the horrifying memory of the spirit, its red eyes glowing, its spooky presence suffocating her. She clenched her fists, rage and despair warring within her. She had tried, but no one believed her. The receptionist, the security guard, even the girl herself, they had all dismissed her as a crazy, bitter stranger. Now another innocent life was about to be shattered, and there was nothing Nandi could do. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered into the night, "I'm sorry." But even in her defeat, a spark of defiance lingered. She swore to herself that somehow, some way, she would find a way to stop Victor. This wouldn't end here. It couldn't. Nandi's life grew darker with each passing day. She wandered the city streets, haunted by memories of her past. Her once bright eyes were hollow, her spirit crushed under the weight of betrayal and despair. Each night she returned to Sky Lounge, staring at the entrance, hoping to see Victor again. But he never came. The ghost of his presence loomed over her, a constant reminder of her shattered dreams and stolen blessings. If you watched up to here, it means you enjoyed the story. Please consider subscribing to Out Channel, share this video and like it. Make your comment in the comments sections. It is highly appreciated.